Welcome, welcome everyone. I'm glad everyone that's here now came in a little bit early. We have an awesome webinar today. And some interesting news from the NJEDA. They have two programs up right now. One is fairly new, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to wait till about 12:01:02 to give people some time to log in. But in the meantime, if you guys can help me out, put a 1 in the chat if you can see the screen and hear me. Perfect, perfect. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Alexis, Yolanda, G. Yes, Laura, so you won't see the option to turn on your camera or audio because this is a webinar and we want everyone to focus on the presenter. Welcome, welcome everyone who's just coming in. We're going to give it another 2 minutes. So I was told Zoom had 2 updates, and I did experience it where it takes you a little while. It takes a little while for Zoom to update their software on your end. So we're going to let people do that. Has anyone here had any trouble with Zoom? Okay, looks like everyone's good to go. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Laura. All right, so as promised, it is 12:02, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So welcome to the NJ Thrives Thursday. It's a weekly webinar for New Jersey small businesses. I'm your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC marketing consultant, CEO at nilumamedia.com. So as you know, you've been to our other webinars. We are America's New Jersey Small Business Development Centers Network. So it's basically a statewide program powered by the SBA and partners to help small businesses in New Jersey with no-cost small business consulting, training, and events starting at $0, just like this one. and exclusive small business resources only available to our clients. So that being said, today's agenda, we're going to go over a couple of headlines, the webinar, and then towards the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So the first headline that I'd like to go over is NJEDA announces a $17.5 million grant program. And it's basically for, let's see if I could zoom in here. So it's for community-based arts and culture businesses. So if you have a venue, if you do live performances, things like that, you're an artist, this might be for you. So we're going to drop the links into the chat and you'll be able to access that and get more information as to what this grant program is all about. Our second one here is basically just a reminder. So this is the Small Business Emergency Assistance Loan Program, phase 2. And just a reminder that it closes on July 30th. So you have until July 30th to pre-register for this. So absolutely go in there, get all your documents together. If you need help applying to any of these programs, remember that we also assist in that. We have what is called a capital team at NJSBDC, where we will help you put all your documents together and submit this kind of stuff. So there's that. And that concludes the headlines for this week. So moving into the webinar, 3 things to keep in mind before we start. Please type in your questions into the Q&A box. So you're going to see a little toolbar on the bottom of your Zoom window. It's going to say Q&A, drop questions in there. Number 2 would be at the end of this webinar, once we close it out, you're going to get redirected to a survey. Once you complete that 3-minute survey, you're going to get access to the webinar materials. So the presentation that our speaker has, and a link to the on-demand webinar, which is usually live within 48 hours. And 3, this webinar is eligible for the Upgrade Your Business certificate. So more info on that at the link there. We're going to drop all of those links into the chat as well. So today's event is with Tim Peter, best ways to keep customers coming back. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great, Christian. Thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you. And of course, your wonderful moderator, Margaret, is also here. She's going to be moderating the event. I'm going to close out my window and you can go ahead and get the show going.
Fantastic. And thank you, everybody. As Christian mentioned, you can, of course, type comments or questions into the chat box. We look forward to those. Margaret will be keeping an eye on the brilliant and talented Margaret O'Donnell from Rutgers Business School, and keeping me, making sure that you're getting your questions answered as we go. But thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen, and then you'll be able to see the slides. All right, so you should see my screen now. Is that correct? Fantastic. All right, fabulous. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to introduce you to somebody. I want to introduce you to Maria Renz. Now, you may ask yourself, who is Maria Renz? And Maria Renz, to start with, is a former New Jerseyan. She's a New Jersey native, so I always like when we can say nice things about people who are our fellow, citizens here in the great state of New Jersey. Maria is also a former vice president technical advisor to the CEO at Amazon. She worked in that role for several years. She was the first woman ever in that role. And her job was to keep Jeff Bezos, who was the CEO then. He just retired the other day and is now a space cowboy, you probably saw. But her job was to keep him up to date on new technologies, new information, and things along those lines, so that he could continue to learn and continue to grow. in a process called reverse mentoring, where she was helping him learn and he was helping her develop in her career. And when she left that role, and this is the key point here, she became the vice president of delivery experience. Now you think about Amazon for a second, a number of packages that they deliver every day. Amazon thought it was so important that the experience you as a customer received when a package showed up, that they have a vice president whose sole job it is to focus on that part of the experience. That's really critical. They understand that every interaction you have with Amazon, from the time you're on the website to the time you open the box to the time you take the product out of the box, is part of that overall experience. And they put a vice president, former New Jersey and Maria Renz, over that role for several years. She only just left the company last year, but they have not yet named her replacement, but it is clearly something they think very, very carefully about. And they really care about that experience. And you are probably aware, I don't know what you think of Amazon personally, but Amazon was rated last year as the 5th most trusted company in the world by Morning Consult. Amazon is obviously a great brand, and they are a competitor of yours. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. They're a competitor of yours for a couple of reasons. One is research shows that customers compare the experiences they have with every brand online against the best experiences that they have. So it doesn't matter if you're a small company, it doesn't matter if you're a big company, you are being compared to the best experiences your customers have everywhere, whether they're using Amazon, whether they're using Uber, whether they're using Booking.com or OpenTable. They are saying, as the experience I'm getting when working with this small New Jersey business, comparable to what I get elsewhere. And if not, that's going to cause you problems. The other reason you care about that is because Jeff Bezos, who, as I said, just retired, a couple weeks ago to become a space cowboy, has said out loud, your margin is my opportunity. Jeff Bezos and the people at Amazon look for opportunities to say, there's inefficiencies in a marketplace. There's people making a lot of money. That's a place we want to be. There's an old joke that says it's not paranoia if they really are out to get you. And in this case, you really are out. They really are out to get you. They've said it out loud. And customer service, customer experience is a key component in how you get customers to keep coming back, how you get them to keep interacting with you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, one of the things we have to recognize is that far too many companies, think of customer experience and customer service as an expense as opposed to an opportunity. About a third of participants in a study that was done by HubSpot last year said that they see it as an expense. And the troubling part of that is, for the second year in a row, that number has gone up. Now, that's hugely problematic. And so the first thing I want to talk to you about today is, if you want customers to keep coming back, they have to have had a good experience with you in the first place. They have to have said, this is something that works for me. You solved my problem. You helped me. Otherwise, the next time they need help, the next time they need a product or a service, they're going to start looking for alternatives. So we need to think about how we make customer service and how we make customer experience part of our overall customer retention practice, and how we build it into the ideas that we do so that we can actually, drive more business from our customers. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to offer you a key framework. It's a framework I use all the time. If you've been to any other of our other webinars that I've participated in, you will have seen this before. But if not, I want to introduce you to the king, the queen, and the crown jewels. All right. So let's talk about the king, the queen, and the crown jewels. The king, content. Content is, was, and always shall be king. Content is a critical component of how your customers interact with you online. More importantly, in this specific case than the king, though, is the queen. Customer experience is queen. And this is where we're going to spend most of our time talking today. And if content is king and customer experience is queen, data is the crown jewels. And I promise you, we're going to spend some time talking about that today, too. But I want to start with the queen, because that's really what this is all about. Now, if you think about a brand, if you think about what it means to be a brand for any company, typically we think of a brand as what we put out there in the world. Our marketing is part of our world, part of our brand. The messages we put out there is part of our brand. Our logo and our colors are part of our brand. And they are. But increasingly today, brand is more than that. Brand is not just what you say, it's also what customers experience. Your brand is the combination of those. It is the sum of all of the experiences customers have with your business. If we say that we're going to do something and we do it, that reinforces the brand. If we say we're going to deliver on something and we don't do it, that detracts from the brand. That tells customers we don't care about their needs. And what's going to happen the next time they need those needs fulfilled? They're going to go looking for something else. So we know, this is again, same HubSpot study. We know that customers have higher expectations in the past. More than 90% of respondents have said that customers have higher expectations. They have great experiences, lots of places. They expect those kind of experiences everywhere. We know that customers are more likely to share positive and negative experiences in the past. It's down slightly from 2019, but not a lot. It's still almost 90% of respondents say customers are more likely to share positive and negative experiences than in the past. And almost 90% again say that customers are smarter and more informed than in the past. Your customers know more about your products and your services and your prices and the benefits that you offer than many of your employees do. They have greater incentive to. They care more. They're the one actually buying the thing. They're the one actually experiencing the thing, right? They're just going to care more. No offense to your employees, but your employees only have to care about the questions they get asked by customers on a regular basis. Your customers need the answer to every question that they need answered before they make a purchase decision or before they come back to you. Now, I want to focus on the second item for a moment, where customers are more likely to share positive or negative experiences than in the past. Because if you're really lucky, well, let me say this differently. If you have luck, right? If you have luck, customers talk more about your products or more about your services than you do. Now, let's be fair. The data showed a minute ago, customers are more likely to share positive or negative experiences. So sometimes if they're talking about you, that's not good luck. That's bad luck, right? You know, if you have a great experience at a restaurant, you went to a restaurant, you had just a tremendous experience. You might tell some of your friends and your family and your fans and followers on social media, right? If you have a bad experience, if you have the worst experience you've ever had, who are you going to tell? Everybody you meet for the next 10 years, right? You don't just tell them about, you didn't just go to the restaurant, you had a story, right? And that's what happens. So we have to recognize that customers are our secret sales force. They are the people who tell a story on behalf of our brand. We know that customer reviews and testimonials tell a powerful story about your business. We also know that customers are going to tell people anyway. It's why customer experience is queen. Because again, if they have a good experience, they might tell somebody. If they have a terrible experience, they're going to tell almost everybody they ever meet. So we want to create a great experience that they're willing to tell and tell a really positive story on our behalf. So here's some quick math for you. These are the most basic numbers possible. I want to be really clear. These aren't meant to be perfectly representative. They're just to give you a sense of what it looks like. So let's say that you get one customer per day, every day for 52 weeks. And I recognize for some businesses, you might only get one customer a week. You know, maybe like me, you're a consultant. You sign only a handful of new clients every month. You could be a restaurant where you get hundreds of customers every day. You do 250 covers a day, right? So obviously these numbers are going to vary, but I wanted to make this really straightforward. You're open 5 days a week, you get one customer a day, you do that for 52 weeks. That means that you get 260 customers every single year. Now, on average, those 260 customers have about 200 Facebook friends. That is an average across all social media, by the way. That's 200 Facebook friends. That could be 200 LinkedIn connections. So if you're a B2B company, you know, you sell to businesses, they're connected to about 200 people on LinkedIn. If it's somebody who's on Instagram, they have about 200 friends on Instagram. So it doesn't really matter the social network. It's this thing called the Dunbar number, where basically people are connected to about 200 folks online on any one platform. So if we have 260 people and they're connected to about 200 people themselves, that gives you a potential audience of about 52,000 people who could potentially hear the story that this customer had with your business. Now, let's be fair. Let's be fair. Not all 260 are going to say anything about you. Maybe 1% will. And not everybody's going to see this, right? So you might only get seen by about 520 people out of this potential audience of 52,000. But that's 520 people. That's twice as many people as you have customers every year using this formula. And if you convert just 5% of those, or 26 folks, that is a 10% increase in sales every year, just from 1% of people sharing a story and 5% of those people converting. And that only happens if they tell you a positive story. They tell a positive story on behalf of your brand. So that's what you need to do. That's why we care so much about customer experience, whether it happens online or offline. It plays a role in how customers, what they will say about you and the story that they will tell. All right. Are there any questions about that before I move forward?
I haven't seen any questions come to the questions box, but I have been encouraging our audience to
All right.
via the chat to go to Q&A. And as they can see evidence by now, we will address some questions in the presentation, and we'll leave some time at the end as well.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you so much, Margaret. I appreciate that. So here's the thing I want you to recognize. When people are talking about your brand, this is a huge opportunity for you. This is an amazing opportunity to hear what it is your customers think, what it is they're saying about you. And when they're telling you something good, that's great. That means you want to do more of that. When they're saying something bad, believe it or not, that's also great. It's not great that they say it in public, but it's certainly great because it gives you an opportunity to improve. It gives you an opportunity to say, okay, that's something I can do better. And it gives you the opportunity to show other potential customers that you listen to customers. And here's why this is important. There's actual data that shows that high growth companies listen more than low growth companies or companies with no growth. So if they track customer satisfaction or happiness, about 70% of companies who are high growth, who actually grow regularly, are doing that, as opposed to only about 50% of companies who do not grow quickly. About 65%, 68% conduct customer feedback surveys, as opposed to about 50% who do not have high growth. Almost 60% monitor online reviews and social media posts versus about 40% for low growth. About 40% have a formal customer advocacy program versus about 10% for low growth. And about 30% track customer net promoter scores versus only about 10%, or about 12% for low growth companies. But you'll note again and again and again, doesn't matter whether they're tracking, whether they're doing surveys, whether they're using social media, whether they're engaging customers to be advocates on their behalf. In every case, high growth companies do this more than low growth companies do, because they're using that information in a meaningful way to A, create better products or services, B, make sure they understand the questions their customers have, C, show other customers, potential customers, that they pay attention and listen. And D, drive growth for their company. So the first question you might be thinking is, well, what is it that our customers are doing, saying, and sharing about us? How can we hear what they have to say? How can we actually pay attention to them? And there's a couple things we're going to talk about specifically right now. First, there's a ton of tools you can use. And again, notice what the high growth companies do. They have a help desk. They have a knowledge base or FAQ. They have a shared email alias, meaning there's one email address that goes to a team who monitors that and can use that information to understand what's going on with the customer. The plurality of them, about 38% or so, use a CRM or customer relationship management tool. A chunk use live chat, a bunch use help tickets. But notice here, the low growth companies way outpace the high growth companies for using none of these. So I don't want you to look at this and say, oh my gosh, we have to do all of these. We have to go out right now and do every single one of these. You do not. You absolutely do not. In fact, I don't want you to take that message away. The message I want you to take away is that if you're doing none of these today, you should pick one of them. And you should start there. And if we're going to talk about one where we're going to start, sorry, Margaret, was there a question?
There was, but you sort of anticipated why I was going to put it out there now. The question was about differentiating between customer satisfaction, customer feedback, and the Net Promoter Score.
Sure. So customer satisfaction, customer feedback, and Net Promoter Score are three different. So customer satisfaction is what we care about. Let's just start there, right? Customer satisfaction is that customers are actually, satisfied with the experience that they have when they interact with our brand or service. Customer feedback is one way to do that. And if you're a smaller business, probably the best way to do it, right? You're literally just asking people, whether you're talking to them directly or whether you're conducting a survey or whether you're, having them, meet with you or things like that, or just having your salespeople talk to them. It is the ability to gain feedback directly. And it's a great way to listen one-on-one or perhaps from a small group, if you're doing a survey and the like. Net Promoter Score is actually a little bit more complicated, where it is a very simple question. And it is very popular among large companies. It does require a fair bit of data. The question is very simple. It is, would you recommend our company to your friends, right? And they find that companies that have a higher percentage of people saying yes to that question than no, the bigger the gap is, the better off you are in the long term. Now, I want to be fair. Net Promoter Score is an actual product that is offered by, I want to say Accenture or Deloitte. I can't remember which one actually owns Net Promoter Score, but they sell it to people. And implemented poorly, it won't necessarily tell you what you think it's telling you. But it is a great question to ask your customers, regardless of whether you use the full-blown version, because it does give you a sense of, if people say no to that, that's a problem. That's definitely a sign that you're not getting the information. They're not getting satisfied the way that they want. So customer satisfaction is, is the customer actually satisfied? And then feedback or Net Promoter Score are different ways to measure, are they actually satisfied?
Very good. We have a couple of other questions coming in as well, but I feel like we may be about to get to that content. So if you want to keep going, I think we may be addressing them.
Well, there is one I saw that I know I don't have a slide on, so I'll touch on this right now, where someone asked, do we have it? What is a shared email address? Really simple. Shared email address is an email address. I have one for my company. It's called information@timteeter.com. Other people have others. You could have sales at or service at or support at or things like that. And it's an email address that goes into a shared inbox that any number of people in the company can see. So here's the real world scenario. I am the president of my company, right? We're a small group. We don't have a lot of people. I travel a lot. I spend a lot of time on airplanes, now that I can travel on airplanes again. right? But in 2019, I did 80,000 miles on airplanes. I spent, I don't know, 100 days in offices with customers of mine, or standing on a stage in front of an audience talking about this stuff, right? So when somebody emails me, if they email my email address, I don't necessarily see that email right away. And it might take me 8 hours. It might take me 12 hours. I could be, on the other side of the planet, and it might take me a day before I get a chance to get back to them. Now, if it's a customer of mine and they have a problem and it takes me a day to get back to them, what's happening during that process? They're getting pissed off. That's a technical term, by the way. Right? But they're sitting there going, I can't believe Tim's not getting back to me. I can't believe I have this problem. My business is in trouble. I need help. And now I'm not getting help. And so I have these email addresses that we give to the customers that says, go ahead and send an email here. And there is somebody who is always monitoring that. Even if I'm out, even if one of the people on my team is on vacation, somebody can see that and get a reply to the customer right away. And that way the customer is always being taken care of. Yes, they can call me. Yes, they can text me. Yes, they can email me. But if they send it to the shared email address, it ensures that somebody is going to pick that up and get back to them within, an hour, within 20 minutes, as opposed to waiting until I get off an airplane and can actually reconnect to Wi-Fi and go ahead and get an answer to their question. So that's why you want a shared email alias, because it gives a place where the email can get seen. Okay. All right, so I mentioned you don't have to pick all of these. You want to pick at least one. By the way, I feel bad because I don't have a lot of slides on this. I'm breaking one of my own rules. You never take people behind the stage and apologize for the thing you didn't do, but I'm going to apologize for the thing you didn't do. I didn't do any slides on the shared email alias because it's a very simple concept. Create an email address and make sure it goes to a place where multiple people can see it. That's all it is. I would absolutely recommend you do that. The other one that I would recommend you do, if you don't do, is social listening, is you want to start to listen to what your customers say. So there's a lot of places where you can do social listening. And you can start, we're going to start by talking about this manually, right? In a minute, I'm going to talk to you about some tools, but if you're just getting started with this, don't feel like you need to run out today and spend money on a tool. All you need to do is start looking at specific tools that exist out there. And then when you discover, okay, I'm getting a lot of this, that's when you might want to say, okay, maybe I need a tool to help automate this or streamline it for me, right? So where can you listen to your customers? Well, one is Google My Business. If you have a physical storefront, if you have a physical location that customers go to, you absolutely want to claim your Google My Business listing. And you absolutely want to encourage your customers to leave positive reviews there for your business. There's a couple reasons why. One, if you get more reviews on Google My Business, Google improves your listings in local search. So right out of the gate, you can drive more business by getting positive reviews. Two, you actually can have content created that you don't have to create. It's created by customers on your behalf. And it tells customers a positive brand story for you. Three, and this is key, even when you don't always get a positive review. So here's a perfect example. This is a local shoe store not far from where I live, right here in Morristown, New Jersey. And somebody said, I had this bad experience. And notice the response here. It says, hi, Mike, we want to apologize for the negative experience you had with our Amazon ordering system. When there was a disconnect, yada, yada, yada. Here's what we do to make this better. Okay. Please let us know so we can make sure we get you taken care of quicker the next time. Now, two things happen here that are really important. One, I beg your pardon, three things happen here that are really important. One, it's a signal to Google that this business is really responsive and takes care of their customers, which also helps boost them in the listings a little bit, right? Two, it helps the customer. It's an answer to the customer's question. The customer said, I had this experience. It wasn't a great experience. The company apologized and said, we're sorry you didn't have a great experience. Here's how we try to make that better next time. That's good. Here's the third reason, and it's the real key reason. Every single other person who reads that review, all of them, now see that this company takes care of their customers, right? The response to the review isn't for the person who left the review, it's for all the other people who are ever going to read the review. And if somebody leaves a bad review on, or says, I didn't have a great experience or whatever, and you reply, well, that's too bad, you stink, you're stupid, and I hate you. What does that say to everybody else who reads the reviews? It says you're a terrible place to do business with, right? It says, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to that store. I don't want to go to that restaurant. I don't want to go to that doctor. They're mean. They're cranky. They don't take care of their customers. Whereas somebody who says, look, I'm sorry you had a bad experience. That is a shame. Here's what we're going to do to make it better. It immediately tells people this is a company that cares and they're trying to make a better experience. And that's a company I want to work with. So that's why you do that. All right. Let's talk about Facebook. Obviously, you should have a Facebook page for your business if you are a B2C company. If you're a B2B company, I'd actually recommend LinkedIn over Facebook. But if you actually work directly with consumers, you should have a Facebook page. And again, notice we're getting reviews right here. You get reviews, all the same things I said about Google My Business apply just within Facebook. It shows Facebook that you're paying attention, your business is open, you're responsive, you do a little better in their listings. It shows the customer who actually posted the review that you care and are trying to make it better. And of course, it shows that it shows everybody else who reads these reviews that you are working to get it better, right? To get better at it for your customers. Now let's talk about Instagram. For some businesses, and this one I put some data in here because I thought it was really important. For Instagram, for some businesses, you want to be there. There's about 140 million users in the United States. About 2/3 of them log on daily. It skews female heavily. This is a bit unfortunate. About 43% of users on Instagram, they know are female. About 31% are male. The rest are unknown. We don't have data on non-binary or people who are non-gendered or things along those lines. So don't assume that the remaining 80% are non-binary or non-gendered. It just means that the data doesn't exist. But if your business skews female, it tends to be a good place to be. It also skews young, with 2/3 of their users every day, 29 or younger. So if you're trying to reach young women, if that is a core constituency for your business, maybe you are a hair salon, maybe you are a jewelry store that caters to people around prom season or things like that, Instagram could be hugely valuable for you. And so these folks have influence and they do share great stories. And again, you want to monitor. Here, I'm just looking for the restaurant. These were not posts that the restaurant put up. I'm actually going to search for the restaurant's name, and these were posts put up by other folks, and they give you an opportunity to interact and an opportunity to reply and to respond and to gauge what's going on with your customers. Now, I mentioned a minute ago, you don't have to spend any money to do this. You can go on Google My Business, you can go on Facebook, you can go on Instagram, you can see this information for free, right? There are tools that you can use to see data on other sources around the web, also for free. Google Alerts is a good one. You go to Google Alerts, it's easy to get to, just go to Google and search for Google Alerts. It's the very first thing that comes up, and you can create an alert. So I put in my name and I can create an alert, and it emails me every time, once per day, every time somebody comes up, mentions my name anywhere on the internet. So that's a great way to track what people are saying about your business all across the internet, because it doesn't mean you have to check every website. It means Google will find places where your name showed up, the name of your business showed up, and it gives you a great opportunity to listen there. If you have some budget, a tool I like is called BuzzSumo. BuzzSumo does social listening across all kinds of sites, both the internet and social media, to say, great, this is something we're paying attention to, and we can see more information about it. If you are interested in others, there's other tools out there. There's Mention, there's Scoop It, there's Sprout Social, there's Social Animal. If you are a B2B company, a company called Octopost is particularly good for B2B social listening. And they have better, they have various pros and cons. What you want to look for is which one give you the kind of alerts that you need on the social networks that matter to you for the cost that it works for your budget. That's what you're looking for. Am I reaching the right people? Is it on the right social networks for me? Is it across the web where I want to be? And can I do it at a cost that is worthwhile for my business? Okay. But remember, you can start for free.
Tim,
are there any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, there is one very relevant to this part of your presentation. Can you talk about how listening, now you're telling us how to, but how does listening increase the amount of transactions, the number of items sold, average value of the transaction, and then a follow-up was about how you add it to the sales process?
Fantastic. I promise I will answer that question in 2 slides. It's a great question. It's such a great question. I actually have about 5 slides on that topic. So I promise I will answer that. And literally I get there in just a moment. But
Excellent.
Phenomenal question. All right. Any other questions before I move on?
None that have come into Q&A, but this is another reminder to our audience to use the Q&A box to submit questions, because as you can see, we are addressing them in the presentation as well as leaving time at the end.
Perfect. So another tool you want to pay attention to is what people search for. And for this, you want to use Google Search Console. Google Search Console is a phenomenal tool. You set it up for your website. It only works for your website. But you set it up and it will show you, here's all the keywords people are using when they're searching for you. Okay, so this is also a good source of information about what people are talking about when they're talking about you. And then the last one you want to pay attention to is on your own website. If you have search capabilities, a little magnifying glass or a little box up in the right hand corner or wherever it is that people can search for things, you can configure Google Analytics, which is the analytics tool most people use on their website, to listen to tell you what it was people were searching for. So again, great source of data. So we got social listening, we got Google Search Console, we've got your own website search data. You put those together and now you know a lot about what people are saying when they're saying about you. So how can you use that, some might ask, to improve your sales and improve your revenues and things like that? That would be a very good question for someone to ask. And the way you do that is we start with, up till now, I mentioned, the king, the queen, and the crown jewels. We've been talking all about the queen and actually doing a great experience. Now let's talk about the king a little bit. The fact that content is, was, and always shall be king. So all that information you're collecting, all that data you're collecting, that is the beginnings of how you create better content for your customers, because your customers have told you these are the things that your people are asking about. So for instance, this is a hotel client of mine, a company I work with that owns a bunch of hotels, a small number of hotels. And what we saw was that customers were talking a lot about breakfast. They were talking a lot about the staff. These were all positive mentions, I should point out. In fairness to my client, we're not showing the negative mentions, but these were the positive mentions, right? Breakfast, staff, restaurants, locations, great hotel for a couple, comfortable, right? Friendly, etc. Obviously, we looked at the negatives as well. In fact, I would argue you want to look at the negatives first. There's an old joke about when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, right? So we looked at the negatives first. I will tell you one negative. One of the negatives we discovered was we got a lot of negative reviews at the time about the Wi-Fi being bad in one part of the hotel. And they went and checked, and we reached out and looked at customer surveys and things like that, discovered that most of the people who left that review stayed in one set of rooms in one corner of the hotel. They went and got an extra router, plugged it into that part of the building. Suddenly all those negative reviews started going away. So they started to improve the experience from that perspective. But in this case, we looked at all of the things that people said that they liked about it. And then we started shifting our content to use this kind of information more fully. So notice we talked about couples and the staff and comfortable and breakfast and the like. So we showed couples enjoying the property, just couples with photos. This was really simple, right? We showed the staff delivering breakfast to the room. What we started focusing on was doubling down on the things customers told us were good. We didn't say, oh, don't pay attention to the things that are negative. We simply accentuated the positives. The customers told us these were good things. And what we saw was a healthy lift in web traffic. People started sharing the information we shared, and we saw a big boost in web traffic. We saw an increase in conversion rate and a significant increase in revenues and profitability. And this last one is really key. We got higher ratings on key social rating and review sites, because the reason people leave bad reviews is very simple. People leave bad reviews because they expected this and they got this. And it doesn't matter if their expectation was super high and you missed it by this much, or if their expectation was kind of low and you missed it by a little. But what happened was there was a gap between what the expectation was and what the experience was. That's when people have a problem, and that's when they leave a negative review. When we set the expectation that what you're going to see here is a great place for couples, you're going to get a great breakfast, yada, 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 the things that we already knew we did well because the customers already told us we did it well, the reviews started talking about the things that we did well, and the review scores went up because the expectation and the reality at least matched, if not improved. Now, the other thing you can use this data for, is things like understanding what are your most frequently asked questions. So this is another client, a restaurant client, who had a problem with, obviously this was very early in the pandemic, there were a lot of questions about what can we do in terms of safety, tons. And so we simply came up with a quick health and safety FAQ, put it right on the homepage. When people clicked on it, they got the answers right away. Proved to be very popular, very well received, and they continue to do well, more or less. Sorry, they did very well all through the pandemic. I'm sorry for the more or less. Obviously, they had to close when they had to close. They could open when they could open. But I mean, they did better than their competitors in that era, in that period, because they were answering the questions the customers had. Are there any questions about any of that?
Sorry, I lost the mouse there for a second. I couldn't get to the unmute button. I don't see additional questions on that particular area, but reminding our audience to send your questions in via the Q&A, and we'll continue to address them in the presentation and with any time left at the end as well.
Perfect. All right, the other thing you can do with this content to actually drive more sales is use them as testimonials. Let your customer know, I'm going to take this information, I'm going to put this up on my website, right? And this is my website. This is an actual testimonial from an actual customer of mine. People actually love hearing from other customers. Customers love seeing that information. We know that testimonials drive business because we get that it's something that's really, this person is like me and they got their problem solved. Now I'm going to show you this. This is my website, right? And I do this for a living. And yet I made a mistake. What's wrong here? There's a problem. There's a legitimate problem here. I got a testimonial from a customer. The guy loved what the work we did. It was fantastic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Except, I made a mistake. Big one. There's no call to action. If you want to turn service to sales, you must ask for the sale. And I'm being very honest about this. I always like to show people when people do it well. I think it's fair to show people when things when people don't do things as well, including when it's me. And this is a perfect example of we've got this great testimonial. Wouldn't it be even better if there was a little button right here, a little link right here that says, hey, interested in learning more? Click here, buy now, reach out, talk to us. So you always want to turn service to sales by actually putting the call to action in and asking the customer for the sale. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some other common mistakes. That's one, but here are some other ones. One is you make customers work harder. Another is you fail handoffs. And the third is you automate before you put the right process in place. And what happens is, you might start just a little bit off of center, but as you try to, get it back and forth, you might go wobblier, and suddenly you got real problems. We want to avoid that. So let's talk about how you do this the right way. First, don't make customers work harder. Just because you say something doesn't make it true. I was at a local CVS. They have this little sign right here that says checkout just got easier. Well, if checkout just got easier, why'd they need to put this big yellow sign up here telling me how to pay? If it's so easy, they probably don't need this sign. And the funny part is, the sad part is, this is the part you want to be easiest. I can tell you this from decades of experience. The worst place to make it hard for the customer is when they're trying to hand you money. The easier you can make it for customers to hand you their money, the better, the more likely they are to actually do that. I know how to pay with a credit card, but they changed the machine. And I want to be fair to CVS. I get that it was not them, it's the payment processors and things like that. I fully understand that. But clearly, this was not working well for customers to the point where they had to tell them how to pay. That's not a great experience. And notice what I'm doing. I'm telling you all about it, right? That's what you want to avoid. So what you want to do is learn from the best and also the not so great. I don't want you to do this right now during the presentation, but I want you to choose a company that you respect for great customer service. Take a look at the companies where you have a great experience. What is it you like about their customer experience? Take a look at another company that shares some of those traits, but who's also struggling, and look at why. Because those will start to help you build a checklist of what can we do a better job of and what do we need to avoid doing, right? Learn from these folks, benchmark against them. The next big mistake you can make is lose track of who's got the ball. What was the customer's last interaction with your business? Who was the last person to talk to the customer in your business? What did they need, the customer? And was their need filled? Do you know the answer to all of those questions for all of your customers and all the current interactions that are going on with your business? If you're like most businesses, and I include mine in this, I bet the answer is not for all of them, maybe some of them, but not all of them. And so you need to make sure you're paying really attention to this. Now, I'm a city kid. I am from Newark, New Jersey. I am a born and raised New Jerseyan. I grew up in Newark. I lived in South Orange. I lived in Rutherford. I lived in Chicago for a long time. But I mean, I'm a city kid at my core, right? And so this was not a subject that I knew much about. But apparently, if you're like down in Middlesex or you're down in other parts of the Garden State, we have these things called silos. And silos on a farm are a really, really good thing. Silos on a business are terrible. They're the worst thing ever. What you don't want is a situation where your sales team knows something and your ops team knows something and your marketing team knows something, but they're not talking to one another because the information is siloed over here or siloed over here or siloed over here. By the way, I say your team. For some of you, I recognize that might be you have one salesperson and you have one marketing person and you have one operations person, and they're not talking to one another. If you can't do it when you have 3 people, what are you going to do when you have 30? Silos are really, really bad. So you need to audit and ensure proper handoffs, both offline and online. What is your company's handoff process? How does something move from marketing to sales? How does it move from sales to onboarding? How does it move from onboarding to operation? How do you audit those handoffs? How do you know what's going on? Do you measure closure? If there was an open ticket because a customer had a problem, do we measure that we closed that issue for them? And if we don't, If we do, rather, how are you measuring it? And then finally, how are you measuring satisfaction? Do you know that, yes, the ticket was closed, but did the customer get what they wanted? And again, you can do a survey, you can do customer feedback, you can just reach out and call them if you're a small enough company and just say, hey, I know you had a problem. I just wanted to check back with you to see how it went. So those are all options for how you do that. Those are the mistakes you want to avoid. And I mentioned automating before you get your process down. Let's talk about how you automate. And to do that, we're going to use a real world example. Let's talk about a contact form on your website. So here's how you do a contact form right. This is a relatively small business, a small software company called People Metrics. Small in terms of the number of people. They actually do a fair amount of business every year, but it's actually not that many people running the company. And they've got this contact form. So how do you do a contact form right? Well, first, you make it easy to find. There's no good value in a contact form that your customers can't actually find on your website. They have a connect button at the top of every page of the website that says, here's, go ahead and contact us if you need help. Second, don't ask for too much information. Imagine you and I, we're meeting for the very first time and I started asking you questions like, hi, good to meet you. What's your name? What's your age? What's your weight? How many kids do you have? Do you like kids? Do you plan on having? I mean, you'd be creeped out. You'd be freaked out. You'd think I was a weirdo. I mean, I might be a weirdo, but you'd especially think it because of these questions. The point is, don't ask for more information than you need. First name, last name, email address. What's your message? Right? Very simple. I've seen forms from people where they don't have a great process for handling things and they got a drop-down list of 20 different things of what's, how can we help you today? And it's all these different things. It's like, what if it's none of those? Just ask them, just tell us, right? Obviously, we recognize that today your customers carry the internet in their pocket. They don't always connect to you simply online. They often connect to you online, they connect to you on phone, they connect to you by actually walking into your physical storefront. So have, where appropriate, a physical address and map right there. You don't want to send in the form. Here's our phone number. Here's our store that you can just walk into and talk to us. The other thing they do really well, they have a big, bold button. Remember a minute ago, I've talked about the missing call to action. You can't miss this call to action. What do we want you to do? We want you to click the button as soon as you're ready. Very straightforward. The other thing I really like about this one is they're collecting information from customers, and today customers are getting increasingly concerned that people don't use that information wisely or correctly. And so they have a link to their privacy policy right there, right next to where they asked for the email address. They're telling you, here's how we use your information, and here's how we make it better. Okay, so this is all really good, right? Don't ask for too much information. Make it easy to find. Give a physical address and map where appropriate. Give them a big bold button. Tell them how you're going to use the data that they give to you. Really straightforward. Now, I was not a marketer originally. I've been doing marketing for 25 years. I've been doing customer service for 25 years, more than 25 years. But I actually started as a musician. And I was taught by my teacher in college that practice does not make perfect. I know that sounds weird, but I want to show you this. I threw in this slide specifically for Margaret because Margaret works with veterans all the time. This is a soldier, an airman, doing a really cool thing. He is jumping out of the back of the plane, and mid-jump, he stops and salutes the rest of the crew as he's jumping out of the plane, right? That is one cool dude right there, right? I have a question for you. Do you think that's the first time he ever jumped out of the plane? No way, right? This guy has jumped out of a lot of planes a lot of times. Now, how did he get so cool? Because he practiced, but practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And what I mean by perfect practice is not that you get it right every time he did it. I'm sure this guy has made mistakes. I'm sure he didn't get it right every single time he tried it, right? What they do though, what you do when you practice perfectly is every time you have one of these interactions, every time you try this, every time you do something new, you collect the data around it and you say, what did we learn from it? So that we can say, how do we do it better than next time? It's not that you're practicing perfectly and that you get it right each time. It's that you're gathering the data each time, learning from the data and applying those learnings so that the next time you do it a little better. That's perfect practice. And that's how you get to perfect. So content is king, customer service is queen, data is the crown jewels. I'm going to show you 2 quick bits of data. First, develop institutional memory. If you've got forms on your website, integrate them with your customer relationship management tool, your CRM. Where does the data go? And is it available to other people in the company so that they can see it? The appropriate people. Doesn't mean it needs to be seen by everybody, just means it needs to be seen by the people who are going to interact with that customer. How do we use that data in a way that we improve so that we do perfect practice? Now, there are a lot of CRM tools out there. They range in price from, not very expensive, and frankly, there are some free options to very expensive. We've provided you a list here. Again, you're looking for the ones that allow you to collect the data that you need from your customers so that you can actually practice perfectly and improve the experience each time so customers can tell a positive story on your behalf and become your secret sales force. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you is, I'm going to spend no time on this, but in the slides, you will see a digital service maturity model that talks about the different areas you want to focus on: reachability, channel flexibility, purchase convenience, simplicity and usability, personalization and institutional memory, and metrics. And where are you in each one? Is this something you do sort of ad hoc? Are you aware of it? Are you striving to get better at it? Or are you driving? Take the time to review where you are and say, where do we need to get better and how do we do that? Now, just before I wrap up, I want to make sure we answer any questions. So there are a couple of questions. I'm happy to answer them now.
We've had a quiet group for the second half of the presentation. No additional questions came in, and that probably means that you addressed what many of their concerns were.
I did see one, Margaret. I wonder if we're seeing a slightly different thing. I did see one. Someone asked, does Constant Contact have CRM tools? I have worked with Constant Contact, but not in a couple of years. So I'm going to be very honest, I'm not 100% sure. I know that you can certainly keep your email list there and your customer list there. So you can use it as a CRM as a starting level if you already have the Constant Contact as your email platform. How well it integrates, or whether it can keep things about the last time you've talked to them, the last interaction and the like, I'm not 100% sure. That would be something I would check with Constant Contact.
Okay, we had something else come in. I didn't realize that came in on the chat. I was scrolled to a different spot, so I'm glad you saw that. But in the Q&A box, we have a request for any suggestions on customer service training for employees.
That I'm going to direct to our very, very, very good friends at the New Jersey Small Business Development Center. I bet they have a number that they could point to. There's some great stuff on YouTube. There's some great stuff on Coursera, but I would certainly leave it to Christian and the other NJSBDC folks to say if there's some other resources that they can point to. So Christian, I'll let you answer that one in just a moment.
Absolutely. So basically go to njsbdc.com/events, and you'll be able to see training all across the state for basically any topic around business and also customer service. So there you go.
If there are no more questions, I'm just going to do my quick wrap up here. Any other questions I can answer before we let y'all get on with the rest of your day? All right. So again, remember the key framework. Remember the king, the queen, and the crown jewels: content, customer experience, and data. Putting those together allows you to create the kinds of experiences your customers are looking for and make sure that you're actually having them tell a positive brand story on your behalf to drive more revenue, to drive more business, and to retain more customers for you. And with one last thing, let's remember our good friend, fellow New Jerseyan, Maria Renz, and the folks like her who are coming for you. They're the ones who recognize we have to have a great experience, even when it comes to delivering the box. And if you do that well, you're going to do just fine. You're going to be in perfect shape. So with that, I want to say thank you all very much for your time. Really appreciate the questions, really appreciate the discussion. And I will turn it over to Christian to wrap us up.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim, for wonderful presentation. Thank you, Margaret, for moderating it as well. This is actually that's not the next event, but we are the NJSBDC. We've helped 13,000 small businesses, no cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, exclusive resources. Go ahead and click the link. We're going to drop it into the chat so that you can actually click it. Please keep in mind, you're going to get a survey. So please fill that out. It really helps us out, improve our events throughout the year. And yeah, I'll see you guys next